right. Happy Saturday, everyone. Happy Saturday and welcome back to Caribbean Diaspora Vibes. And thank you all for joining us on a beautiful Saturday afternoon. I want to say big ups to all of the women. It is Women History Month. And we always run things all year long, but we still get a month, and so we appreciate of that. So hey Louis, how are you this Saturday?
I'm great. How are you?
Good. Been out running around, so let's jump right in. We're running a few minutes behind. We know these beautiful ladies have date night, or COVID safe date date night set up, right?
So they do it right in the living room there, right?
Yeah, you see, I said COVID safe date night.
Yes,
So
yes.
welcome everyone. My name is Donna Morgan, and I am one of your hosts for Caribbean Diaspora Vibes. I am the president of Caribbean American Diaspora, real estate broker of Florida Summer Homes Realty, and CEO of Women of Culture Incorporated. So we like to talk about a little bit of everything on Saturdays that involves the Caribbean American community. This month, it is, of course, Women's History Month, and it's also Mental Health Awareness, right? So we decided to call this series Women in Mental Health to just wrap it all up. So tonight we have two amazing women for you to hear from. And we always look out because this show is not just for Caribbean people, but it's always a plus. And if we can get a Caribbean American or a Caribbean heritage individual to join us, but it is open to all. We always want to say that, right? So, but we're always bigging up our Caribbean community, so we can't even help that. So today we want to quickly just introduce, and then we'll come back to hear from each woman. Our first guest will be Marcia. Amarsingh. Marcia, how do you pronounce it? Is it Amarsingh?
Amarsingh.
Okay, so I was not right the first time. Amarsingh. So we're gonna hear from Marcia. She's gonna tell you guys about who she is, what she does. So by the way, Marcia is from Jamaica, but she lives in Massachusetts, right? In a cool weather place.
Yes, freezing.
So, and then we have Dr. Letitia Browne-James, who is from St. Thomas, USVI, massive in the house. And she is local here in Florida. So I just want to say welcome, Louis. Welcome to you, amazing women that we're going to hear from today. And Louis, did you want to say anything before we go right into Marcia?
Just want to welcome the ladies here on the network and Caribbean Rhythms on behalf of all of us, the staff, the team, and all our listeners. We want to welcome you guys as we continue to celebrate Mental Month and Women Month. We're glad to highlight you on this network for this evening. So welcome you all.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I just want to let everyone know that we are live on Caribbean American Diaspora Facebook page, and also we'll be sharing on Caribbean Rhythms Radio Network, and then of course on my personal page, Donna Morgan. So we're gonna jump right in, and again, happy Women's Month, History Month, right? International Women's History Month, to be exact, to you, and also mental health. So mental health is something that, especially in the Caribbean American community, that we don't like to talk about. We don't like to hear that word. We go so extreme whenever you say mental, right? So first what we're gonna do is we're gonna get each woman's perspective, each professional, because these are professional, and you guys can get to us also about your credentials and about yourself. Don't just jump right into the meat. We want to know who you are, where you're from, and even what led you down this path to be, especially being Caribbean and is such a stigma. How did you get here? So we'll begin with Marcia.
Well, good evening, everyone. My name is Marcia Beaumont, and Amarsingh is my married name. I'm from St. Anne, the beautiful parish of St. Anne. I,
Yes, big up.
yes. I attended York Castle High School, and then I went to Dental Auxiliary School, and then the University of the West Indies. I did my first degree, my bachelor's and my master's at UA. So if we have any UAites out there, you know what I'm talking about. I migrated to the United States not too long ago. I moved here in 2006.
Mm.
And once here, I immediately started working in my field, mental health. But I worked in a residential program. And on a specific unit, it was a substance use disorder unit. So that kind of drove me into specializing in substance use disorder. And I kind of moved right there. So I worked in detox, I worked in a rehabilitation center, I worked in Worcester House of Corrections, which is a jail. I did a substance abuse program within the jail, which I believe is awesome in terms of persons who commit crimes but really have a substance use disorder, that they are not just punished for the crimes they commit, but they're treated so that when they're released, it will, cut down on recidivism. So I'm really happy that they have instituted that program. And since then, they have actually instituted other programs in the court, such as the drug diversion program. We could talk a little bit more on that. So I worked in the jail, and then I started my own private practice in 2016. And since then, in March of 2020, I was licensed. I got a license for a mental health clinic. So it's a mental health and substance use disorder clinic that we're embarking on right now. So that's pretty much how I've grown within the last 14 years. Um, I know you asked about our perspective on mental health. So I'm going to talk a little bit more on substance use disorder, and I'm pretty sure Dr. Brown will go more into mental health. So substance use disorder is one of the biggest crises apart from COVID-19 in our country right now. We have an overdose rate way beyond maybe the death of flu or so on a yearly basis, especially in Massachusetts, where we have a heroin crisis. A lot of people are dying from opioid overdose. So that's big that we have treatment in that field. And there is such a stigma surrounding substance use disorder. If we believe that the stigma was on mental health, let's talk a little bit about that stigma on substance use disorder. Because persons feel ashamed, they feel isolated. Persons don't want to come out and tell someone that they have a substance use disorder because they're seen as weak. Or a survey was done within our own health organization on just the stigma of substance use disorder. And many of our own health professionals felt that people who abuse substances were reckless, irresponsible, unemployed. And so that's kind of the stigma that it carries. And because of that, persons do not want to come and seek treatment. Hence, it leads to worse drug problems, hence overdose.
Wow.
So I like the fact that because isn't Substance Abuse Month, that's coming up also, and I like how you're able to tie in those two, right? The
Yes.
what usually causes is it usually the mental health that causes the substance
So
abuse?
substance use disorder is part of mental health. It's actually a brain disease, as very similar to any other mental health disorders like schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, depression, anxiety. But persons see substance use disorder as very, very different. But it is a mental disorder. So yes, it's usually what we call comorbidity, or dual diagnosis, where persons have been diagnosed with is a mental health disorder like depression or anxiety, which leads often to self-medication using substances, or they experience pain, and pretty much many persons start substance use disorder by actually being prescribed an opioid analgesic by a professional. So that can start it off as well. But I just want to add that substance use disorder has a really strong genetic base. 60% of people with substance use disorder actually have a predisposition to it. So it's in their genes, quite similar to mental health or mental disorders. I'm sorry.
Mm.
So
So, Marcia,
yeah,
as a woman from Jamaica, where the least little thing we call you mad person, you're a madman, mad woman, and all them things there.
yeah.
Um, how did you get into this field? Did you start while you were in Jamaica, or did you get into it here in the America?
Yeah, so I started actually when I was in Jamaica. So once I graduated from dental school and was practicing in the field, I didn't go back to my country parts of St. Anne. Like many of us who moved to Kingston to go to school, I stayed in Kingston. And I noticed that I was actually in a really, really volatile area, the Seaview Gardens area.
Mm,
There was just a lot of violence
yes.
and traumatized children and families. And so they would come to the clinic for treatment. And most of my time, I would sit down and just be talking to them. And
Mm,
I developed a liking for this field. I also felt like the dental field was a little bit too much for me. I had an experience that changed my perspective very, very early. I was doing a local anesthetic on a little 12-year-old boy, and he bit my finger so bad it almost took the nail out.
oh my
And
God.
I said, oh my god, is this what I'm going to be doing? So I started looking in other directions, and then psychology. I was always a reader, and I was just interested in human behavior. So I went and I did my bachelor's, and you can't just do a bachelor's in psychology because that will not qualify you rarely to do extensive work. So I did my master's then. And so I started teaching A-level psychology in Jamaica and also practicing as a counselor there. And then when I moved, I just continued.
Awesome, awesome. And in terms of the what's going on now with the COVID virus, you have seen obviously an increase in the number of mental health coming to you. Is that a fact at this time?
Yes. So I should tell you also that as part of my private practice, I contracted to some nursing homes, what we call skilled nursing facilities,
Hmm.
originally known as nursing homes. And so I probably am doing maybe I ended up doing like 40 nursing homes. But right now, since COVID, I'm probably doing about 12 or 13. And so I'm going into these nursing homes to do assessments for persons with a history of substance use disorder. And I'm seeing much more younger people. I'm seeing a lot more endocarditis, osteomyelitis, things that happen because they've used needles and have, developed sepsis, so on and so forth. I've seen a lot more persons who have gone into comatose state for a period of time because of overdose. So, needless to say, this pandemic has caused another epidemic. It's substance use disorder, and
Mm.
we're going to see a rapid increase in hospitalizations. I'm pretty sure we have been seeing them. It's just the focus is not on substance use disorder right now. We're talking about COVID. But after this is all said and done, we're going to see a lot more children who have been locked in their homes right now with their abusers. We're going to see more coming out. They're not able to report anything because the teachers are not seeing them face to face and the abusers are right there. So I'm pretty sure we'll see more child abuse, sexual assaults, divorces, just a lot more depression because people are locked away and isolated. Can you imagine person suffering from normal depression who would have been isolated somewhat, but in a COVID situation, totally locked in their homes for over a year? So
Yeah.
we're seeing a much more suicidality. So mental health is significantly on the rise, and especially with COVID. Yes.
Wow.
All right. We wish you all the best. You got a tough field to work in there for the next couple of years. Well, to keep you busy.
Thank you. I really love my job and I don't want it to be, well, I have a lot of work to do. I would not like to see, I'd like to see that decrease. I wouldn't want to see a lot of
Yeah.
people suffering from substance abuse, but or mental health disorders, but unfortunately that's not the case.
Gotta face the fact.
Yes,
It's gonna happen.
absolutely.
So Marcia, how do you think being from Jamaica, right? Because we're gonna ask each guest
Mhm.
from Jamaica, how do you think the awareness of mental health matters? Do you think that it's gotten better?
So I think that in Jamaica, people are a little bit more open now to mental health. Of course, it does still have a stigma. I know back in the day, persons who suffer from mental health were either doped upon them, or some crime or some sin was committed by their foreparents that cast
Mhm.
a spell on them,
Yes.
um, or them smoked too much weed.
Hmm.
But now I think that is changing. I know we do a lot of work with the JD doing seminars and reaching out to the communities. And so I feel like people are in Jamaica are a little bit more open to the process. We're also training more counselors and therapists and psychologists and psychiatrists in Jamaica, and we have people going out in the field. I know they've introduced counseling in the schools, so they have many more guidance counselors reaching out to the children who are presenting with symptoms of mental illness or abuse or trauma in the schools. So I think we're becoming a little bit more open. But I'm not just going to target Jamaica here because mental health carries a stigma throughout the entire world. We just saw that interview um, with Prince Harry and Meghan, and
Mhm.
how she was having these symptoms, but the institution would not allow her to seek treatment because of what it would look like.
Right.
We have seen so many celebrities who have mental health issues who are afraid to come out. But recently, we've seen more and more people coming out and saying, "I have an issue. I have an issue with bipolar disorder." So it's becoming much more acceptable. So I think that is changing. And once we have celebrities coming out and saying that for some reason they carry, you know, major influence on people in general, and so I think people are a little bit more open to that right now. So we're getting there.
Yeah, I definitely think so. I know we've got a couple people on the online with you. I don't know if anyone wants to say, any supporters want to say anything. We're also checking the Facebook page to see if anyone has questions that we may have to come back. So Marcia, just in case, tell us where people, we can find you, where your office is and so forth.
Absolutely. I am in Worcester, Massachusetts, and my private practice is Amarsingh Integrative Counseling Services, LLC. I'm at 51 Union Street, Suite 314 in Worcester. And the clinic, the mental health clinic, is Renewal Integrative Psychotherapies, LLC. And we're at 90 Madison Street, Suite 502. And the number to reach us or to reach me, I'll give you my number. It's 508-981-3301. My email is aicsllc@outlook.com. So you can reach me, and we have Facebook pages.
Mhm.
I just want to add to Donna that in 2019 we embarked on another project. I wear many hats, and so we opened a sober house,
Oh,
and so we have that sober house. It's a male sober house right now we're thinking of. expanding later on, but we started with a male sober house and it houses 16 men. So throughout this pandemic, for persons suffering from substance use disorder who would otherwise be on the streets, all my men in my house right now are homeless people. And so we have them there. We do encourage them to seek group therapy, individual therapy. They have to be sober to remain there. So it's helping out the city of Worcester again.
So
Very
for
commend. Very.
so do if you don't mind, like a little recap, because most people won't know like what a sober house is, because I do the substance abuse awareness, so I do realize that. But tell us again the areas that your practice is on, and then what is the sober house.
So the sober house is basically the next step into transitioning back to the community once an individual with substance use disorder have been detoxified. So they go to a detoxification process, which is usually what we call a detox. And what it does, it gets the drug out of their system, almost like a dry cleaning process.
Mhm.
Once they are motivated to becoming clean or staying sober, then the sober house is the next step up where they actually have a place to live, remain sober, they're drug tested, and they try, encouraged to get a job and to get reunified into their communities. It's independent living to a large extent, but with a social piece to it. So it's more of a social house where it's a support group for everyone there, because one looks out for the other to make sure that my brother is not using, you're not relapsing.
Mhm.
So that's pretty much the sober house. Then sober houses are very, very different from halfway houses now. So halfway houses have, and I'm not sure for every state. I can only speak for Massachusetts. For halfway houses in Massachusetts is insurance based, so it's like a program, like a substance abuse program where you would go in for like 6 months and you have to do certain curriculums and so on. Whereas the sober house is basically housing in a sober environment.
That is awesome. That is
Mm.
awesome. Congratulations. I think that's a great concept.
Thank you. Thank
Yes.
you.
And I have a question, the last question for you.
No, I want you to ask more.
All right. Well, as a Jamaican, let's see, food wise, let's get into a little bit of food. Fish tea or manish water?
So if you were asked me this question 10 years ago, I would say honest water. But I became a vegan in 2015.
Okay,
And I
awesome.
stayed a vegan for many, many years.
Yes.
And recently I started eating fish and seafood. So what did we say? Fish tea?
Fish
Fish
tea.
tea is it.
All right. Very good. All
Wow.
right. Very cool.
So thank you so much again, Marcia, for joining us and sharing your take on mental health, right? Because there's so many different aspects of it, and we just wanted to give you the opportunity to talk about what you do in your community, and then you do so much volunteer work in your state and in Jamaica. So we just want to big you up, and this is all about diaspora, right?
Yeah.
And doing the work, because most of us are either born or have family heritage, but then we still come to the United States and this is our home, but we give back to both places. So, we're here working and we're contributing to in various ways back home. And I love connecting with our guests that are doing so. Marcia is with JD10, which
Yes,
is
I was
Jamaica,
about to say that I'm the vice chair for the JD Tan Health Task Force as well.
and they stay very busy with oh my God, with outreach, virtual forums to connect with Jamaica. So big ups to you, Marcia. Thank you so much. So I think we're gonna take a quick station ID, and then we're gonna come back to our second guest.
All right. And of course, you're in tune to Caribbean Rhythms Radio Network live on crrfm.com. And we are in tune to Caribbean Diaspora Vibes this evening, the 13th day of March. Welcome, everybody.
Yes, welcome back, everyone, and happy Saturday. If you just joining us, you missed an awesome interview and perspective from one of our women in mental health, Miss Marcia Amarsingh. But I want to keep saying Amarsingh or Amarsingh, but Marcia A. Okay? And and this is also it's saved on Facebook, so you can go back and we can share it over and over, so you can get if you missed anything. So we're going into our second half of our program in Women in Mental Health. My name is Donna Morton-Morgan. In case you missed that, I am the president of Caribbean American Diaspora, real estate broker of Florida Summer Homes Realty, and CEO of Women of Culture Incorporated. Speaking of Women of Culture Incorporated, we have an awesome lineup tomorrow at 2:30. We will be having a global tribute. We have women from 11 countries that are getting together and just giving a tribute to women facing violence or injustice of any kind. That's going to be 2:30 p.m. Eastern, and it's going to be streamed on Women of Culture Inc., INC. So you do not want to miss that. But if you can't make it, again, it's saved, right? You can just go back and relax tonight with a glass of wine and watch these events. COVID actually, it did a lot of damage, but it's also brought a lot of good things out. In anything that's negative, you always have to look for the positive. And we pivoted, and we're making this work. We're still connecting. We're still bigging people up. You just can't stop bigging people up. You still have to find a way to show love, to give love, all of that. And we're using this virtual space to do so. So we want to jump right in to our next fabulous woman in mental health. And we are going to introduce you to Dr. Letitia Browne-James. Now, Dr. Browne-James is from St. Thomas, USVI. I was just in St. Thomas in January. Oh my God. Anywhere in our Caribbean islands are so beautiful. It's just, you can't even, all of them, you just can't even, when you go there, you have to really prep yourself to come back. You have to talk to yourself and be like, okay, I have to be on good behavior. You have to like reprogram yourself when you come back into the United States. It's just something about when you land in the Caribbean. I don't know if it's just the weather or the vibes. People are just very different. There's a lot of good morning, good afternoon. That's the first thing. And let me tell you, a lot of times people in the Caribbean can know that you're visiting from the US, especially because you don't say good morning. You don't say good afternoon when you pass people. So they're like, oh, tourists. Right? So that's something that's something that we have to. You couldn't just pass people walking, don't say hello and morning and all these things like people do now, especially as a child, but even as a grown-up. So there's a lot of different things that we experience here, and we're like, oh, okay. But we're here. So let's jump right into Dr. Letitia Browne-James. Thank you so much for joining us. And so tell us a little bit about you and your practice and how you contribute to women, being a woman in mental health.
Good evening. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Dr. Letitia Browne-James, as Donna said, and I am originally from St. Thomas, USVI. I moved here right after high school to Florida. So I live in Florida, and I started off by going to Bethune-Cookman College.
Dr. B, sorry. I think we're hearing, is your mic, am I the only one hearing that, or are you guys
no, I was
hearing something?
A feedback too.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm not sure why. Are you still hearing it?
Yes,
Yeah.
it's muffling a little bit. Yeah.
And you know when you came on it wasn't.
Right.
So you know the devil just so I'm gonna mute. Maybe it's one of mine and I'll let you speak.
Okay, and then let me know. I'll try and fix it. But how is it now?
Yeah, it's still muffling.
Okay. I can try to switch devices if that'll help.
Yeah, try that because it seems as if when you speak, that's when it comes up.
Okay.
It's weird because you know earlier on she was on and it was nothing. But so we're gonna just give her a few minutes to test out. Dr. Debrio, Bevon, so we're gonna try to switch devices.
How's it?
But you, oh, much better.
Okay, I was on my desktop. I'm not sure now I'm on the phone. So
okay. So again, you see how you can jump around quick. You know, it's probably because it's a woman. If it was a guy, no, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
We're very flexible people.
yeah.
All right, thank you again. So again, if you'll start over telling us about who you are, Dr. Browne.
Okay, sure. My name is Dr. Letitia Browne-James. As Donna said, I'm originally from St. Thomas, USVI, and I moved to Florida right after high school, just a few months after high school. So I've been living in Florida for over 20 years now. And I went to Bethune-Cookman. It was Bethune-Cookman College at the time, HBCU. And I studied psychology. I knew from the time I was about 12 that I wanted to be a counselor. So when I went to school, I went right into psychology. And then after that, I worked at a pretty large, well-known organization that helps to take care of children and adolescents that were abused and neglected and are now dealing with trauma and just a bunch of different things, mental health, substance abuse issues because of the trauma that they had endured. And I did that for about 2 years before going back to school. I went to University of Central Florida, where I earned a master's in mental health counseling with certificates in marriage and family therapy and play therapy. So I'm now a licensed mental health counselor, board certified counselor. I also have a Ph.D. in counselor education and supervision with a specialization in counseling and social change, which I attribute a lot to my Caribbean heritage and just really, really passionate about destigmatizing mental health, not just in the community, but I mean, in the Caribbean, but globally, and, you know, in communities of color and just everywhere, you know. So I am a full-time professor. So right now I teach full-time, and I teach in a counseling program. So students that are learning to become counselors at the master's level, I teach in that program. I'm also the marriage and family coordinator there. But in addition to that, I have my own practice. So in the Orlando area, but right now my practice is completely virtual. I have a group practice. So I have myself and some other counselors working under me. And our goal is to just really serve people from all walks of life, children, adults, couples, families. We specialize in mental health for people of color, but we see everyone, you know, across the spectrum that are dealing with anxiety, depression, you name it. You know, people are really struggling. And like it was stated earlier, since the pandemic, mental health has just skyrocketed. Substance use, substance abuse has skyrocketed, child abuse, domestic violence, suicide ideations, people that are thinking about suicide, people that are actually attempting suicide, and people that have unfortunately completed suicides. So our goal is to spread awareness and to just really support people, because people are going through it. They were going through it before the pandemic, you know, and they're definitely going through it now for a multitude of reasons. So we're dealing with the double pandemic, you know, or epidemic with the pandemic, but let's not forget, I mean, we've also dealt with a lot of stuff politically that has been traumatic, a lot of racial trauma that has happened, and social media has contributed to that. And it depends on how you look at it. It has just highlighted how these things continue to happen across communities. and how it affects people, and even what's called vicarious trauma, which is having a traumatic response to something that you did not personally experience, but by watching it on TV or on social media. For example, seeing people get shot and killed, just different types of traumatic experiences can cause a vicarious traumatic response in people. So a lot of that is happening. People, just generally speaking, the average person doesn't really understand trauma. They don't necessarily understand mental health. I know we're talking today about stigma, particularly in the Caribbean. Earlier, we were talking about substance use and substance use disorders and people having them and not seeking out treatment. But a lot of times they don't know. They don't know that they have something that's diagnosable or that requires treatment because of ignorance and lack of awareness, and also shame, and also we have religious aspects. And let me say this, I'm a religious person, I identify as Christian, but within certain religious communities, unfortunately, we also contribute to mental health stigma, by saying things like, just pray about it and take it to God, which you certainly should do if you are a praying person. But if just like when you have something physical, you go to the doctor, the medical doctor, or like the dentist or whatever, it's the same thing with mental health. Everyone goes through traumatic experiences at different levels, or just have things that has happened to them, even grief and loss, losing a loved one, different job losses, just different things that people go through. Just life happens, infertility, like I said, the death of a loved one, the death of a pet, you name it. We all go through it. So it may cause us to have an emotional reaction, which is not always something that's diagnosable. It's just an emotional reaction to something that has happened. And you just may need to talk about it, and not just talk to your girlfriend or your grandmother or a family member, but to an actual professional who is objective and can help you walk through it. I know we talked earlier about medications and the opioid crisis, and how for some people that has contributed to substance use disorders and, different things like that. But sometimes people genuinely do need medication, to help them if they're dealing with something related to their mental health that is caused by a chemical imbalance in the brain, and just other things. Each person is different. My approach to therapy is very individualized. I treat the person, look at the person for who they are, look at their experiences, how it manifests for them, and definitely culture, because culture plays a huge role in how people react to things, how they seek out treatment, how they seek out help, or how they don't. So really looking at the cultural aspect in how diseases present themselves or disorders present themselves, and what is the proper way to treat it so that you're helping the person and not harming the person. Within the mental health community, one of the first things we learn is to do no harm, so you can easily do harm. And unfortunately, I've seen it done where someone is working with an individual or a family, and they're using, let's just call it a cookie cutter approach, and not individualizing the experience for the person or for the family. And it causes them to terminate their treatment early, or to frankly be more harmed. So my goal is to help my students, help the people that I supervise for licensure, and my own clients that I have personally, helping them in a way that is authentic and genuine, and again, individualized to their experiences.
Awesome. That is great. Question, who do you see coming to you most for treatment, husband or wives?
You mean for like couples counseling, or just individual?
Well, individuals. Do you find that the male seems to be dealing with mental issues more than the female in the house?
I wouldn't say more. Men are dealing with it just as much, but men are not as forthcoming about it, and are less likely to seek out treatment. Going back to that cultural aspect, just generally speaking, men are socialized not to talk about their feelings, or if you admit that you're depressed or you're anxious or whatever it is that you're dealing with, even physical stuff, right? That something is wrong with you and you're not man enough, so they're less likely to come, but they do come.
Got to, got to. And in terms of young people, what are the age bracket that you're seeing that you're really surprised to see these age bracket come to you for these treatments?
Well, I typically see, I've worked with kids as young as 3 as a counselor, but typically I do 5 and up. And unfortunately, our kids are dealing with so much stuff, you know, so much trauma. I know we talked a little bit earlier about abuse and neglect. And for a lot of times for kids, it's trauma. And with kids, it usually manifests in the form of some type of behavioral issue. You know, they're getting in trouble at school, they're getting suspended, they're getting expelled, or, you know, different things like that. Because kids, I mean, it's hard enough for us as adults sometimes to express how we're feeling, you know? So it's even more challenging for children because sometimes they just don't have the words. I mean, developmentally, they don't know how to put it into words. So oftentimes it will manifest behaviorally, and that will bring them into counseling.
Yeah, I mean, just think how stressed out we are, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then I mean, these children, for real, what they're experiencing now they are like,
yes,
so many different levels.
Yes, the kids are really, really going through it. And I'm working with a lot of kids and their parents, particularly because of the pandemic and how the pandemic has added an extra layer of stress for them. And like you were talking about earlier, Donna, with school and them not being in school, you know, for a lot of them, they're going to school virtually. And a lot of kids are struggling with that, you know, for a couple of reasons. I mean, for one, everyone has different learning styles, and some people just learn better while being in the classroom. And then another thing that's causing problems in families with children is they're not having a social life. You know, adults are not having a social life, but you know, for most adults, you can go out, you can go to work or whatever. But for these kids that are in school at home 100%, they're not having a social life, and it's causing them to have some serious mental health issues. And sometimes the parents, because they don't know, it's no fault of the parents, they just don't know that the reason the child is more withdrawn than usual, or they seem more irritated than usual, is that they're trying to cope with this the best way that they know how. And then, you know, a lot of parents are really struggling with, well, I don't want to put them in school right now because I don't want them to get sick, or, you know, for them to be exposed or whatever. So it's really difficult for a lot of parents to balance, like, what decision do I make? And it's causing a lot of friction between them and their kids and in families in general. It's really heartbreaking.
So what are some signs, right? Because like you said, and like Marcia said earlier, I mean, this is going to be exposed a lot more. What are some signs that parents can kind of tell what, you know, that something is off with the child or the teenager?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, for one, trust your instinct, trust your parental instinct. If something is telling you something is off, right? And but in terms of actual signs, if the kid is not, and of course this depends on the age, right? But if they're not acting like themselves, they seem a little, like I said earlier, a little bit more anxious, they seem a little bit more irritated. They're for teenagers, like tweens and teens, you know, for example, they get to a certain age where they don't really want to be bothered that much. They want to just kind of be on their phones or play video games or whatever it is that they do. And they, you know, and again, I'm just generally speaking, they tend to move away from the family in a sense that the peers become more of an influence or more important, right? But if something just seems off, and then if their peer group, they're not able to interact with their peer group as much. So they're asking mom or grandma or auntie or whomever they live with, right? Can we go skating? Can we do this? And the answer is no, because I don't want you to be exposed to COVID, right, you know, or whatever it is, or your grades are not good, so you can't go anywhere. That's another major thing. A lot of kids, like I said, are struggling with school. So then the parents are doing the parental thing of trying to implement like punishments or taking away privileges because they're not doing well in school. But then you have to balance, are they not doing well in school because they're not trying, or they're just struggling with the online schooling? So then how do you kind of resolve that and find a nice balance between letting them do something. You know, one of the things that COVID has taught us, like you mentioned earlier, Donna, COVID, there have been some good things that have come out of COVID. And one of the things that I think is positive is it's causing us to think outside of the box and be more creative in how we do things. So, you know, sitting with your kids and figuring out what can we do as a family, you know, that's different, or what can I let my child do, or what can I do for myself? Because as adults, we need some time too, you know, we need a break as well. And a lot of parents or just adults too are working from home. So you're working from home, you're being pushed into the role of a teacher. You're not a teacher, but you're having to, you know, function in that role. That's a lot of pressure, you know, and a lot of stress. And some parents are really, really feeling like they're losing it because it's so frustrating. It's so overwhelming for them to cope with. So finding things that you can do for yourself is really important too. You know, getting outside more in nature, just whatever it is, you know, finding some time to have like a nice soothing bath when the kids go to bed, something. And for women in particular, you know, we tend to take care of everyone but ourselves, right? And so I talk to a lot of women about this, that we have to take care of ourselves. You know, it doesn't matter how busy you are, you have to find some time to do something every single day for you. You know, even if it's just watching something funny on TV for 30 minutes, you know, eating your favorite snack, something that nourishes you and replenishes you. It's so important for all of us to do that on a regular basis to stay grounded.
Yeah, I just posted on a Women of Culture Incorporated, Women of Culture Inc. page today. I posted self-love is natural medicine for mental health. And because so many women really, we just think that we're supposed to take care of everything, everyone else, you know, other than ourselves. We come last. I don't know, we just many of us have adopted that from earlier on. So we're adults and we keep pouring out. Our cup is low and we don't fill it up because we keep pouring out, and then we crash sometimes, right? But we don't understand that when we fill our cup up, then we're a better mom, sister, you know, everything, wife, all of that. So yeah, self-love is big. But in a time like this with COVID, yeah, the stress is on because now you're at home, the kids are at home, the husband's at home probably, and then the dog or the cat is home too.
Right.
And so you're like, oh my God. So, you know, it can really, and if you don't have a routine to go walking or exercise or something, meditation, prayer, something, you really could start looking sideways at everybody.
Right, exactly. And even if you had a routine, your routine has been completely disrupted,
right,
or had to undergo some type of adjustment. So now, you know, you're like let's say some people go to the gym and their gym was closed, you know, so what do? You have to get creative and be intentional. That's the word that I love to use. Be intentional about how you can readjust your life to incorporate some things for the family, incorporate some things for yourselves to keep yourself in a balanced place.
And I think that's probably like Marcia was saying, we're gonna have overeating, we're gonna have indulging in substance abuse.
It's already started. Oh yeah. It's already, unfortunately, it has already started. You know, the rates are mind-blowing, you know,
way too high
since the pandemic.
Yes.
So all of that to deal with get the vaccine maybe and all of that, but then you've got all these other ripple effects, right? So we definitely need to, hopefully there'll be more counseling in the schools, especially for our young children, to help, because they get that comfort at home. They may not get that parent that's going to really especially with Caribbean people, we really didn't ask a lot of like, how are you doing, Johnny? And how was your grades? And how did you feel today? I didn't get that back then. It was like talk, right? It's some really rough talk, right, Lois?
Yes.
Yep.
It was
If you
more
didn't
like,
bring
did you
home,
get homework? It was more like, did you get homework? You should go do your homework.
yeah.
Right. Exactly. And it's so important to have those conversations and really get rid of this thinking that if you're struggling with some type of mental health and or substance abuse issue, right? Because like Marcia said earlier, they go together. Sometimes it may be the substance use that leads to a mental health disorder or vice versa, right? But
Right.
getting of this thinking that you're crazy and all of the other terms that we say across the Caribbean and across the globe as it pertains to mental health disorders or any type of mental health issue that someone may be having. Because like I kind of mentioned this a little bit earlier, sometimes it might be situational. It might not be that someone has a full-blown mental health, let's say depression. That's an easy one to go with, right? It might something has happened, like for women, sometimes women go through postpartum depression. That's temporary. It's not always something that's permanent. It's not always something that requires medical intervention, but it is important to go sit with an expert, a mental health expert, to help you sort through that and come up with a plan that works best for you as an individual so that you can be on the road to getting better.
Awesome.
Louis, sorry, she just mentioned the postpartum depression.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even think most people know
what that is. Mm-hmm.
That's an area that is just untouched when I tell you. And it was Megan in the interview when she talked about how she felt, depressed and stuff after. This is something that women really go through after giving birth, and I don't even know how many years after it lasts. So it could be even a couple years, and right. So that piece alone. So now you're pregnant. You're coming into having a baby, into such uncertainty and craziness. So add all of that, So wow. I mean, you ladies are doing awesome work because without a stable mind, you can't even. Let's see how important it is. If you're not in the right mind, you cannot sign any legal documents.
Yes.
Right.
And speaking of mind, my next questions to both of you actually. How do you balance? Because there's so many crazy things going on now, and you said there's so many patients, young, old, everybody coming to you for assistance, for help. How do you balance your spiritual life with what you do at the end of the day? How does that help?
Excellent question. I always say the body, mind, spirit, they're connected. And it's one system. If one of them, if you're out of sync spiritually or emotionally or physically, it's probably going to throw the other ones out, right? So finding that balance that works for you, tapping into your spirituality. If you're a spiritual person, it could even just be meditation, something to nurture your spirit, which ultimately nurtures your emotions and nurtures your body.
For me, I am reading more. I'm reading a lot. I have really, really good friends that I talk to every day. Almost like a decom, just like a ease down time in the evening. And for me, my sisters are very supportive. We have an active WhatsApp group, and we get hooked into all kinds of things. Like now we're doing hair products and natural hair products, and we just distract ourselves with just so many other things. And also we do a lot of self-care too. We focus on taking care of our skin, dieting, that kind of stuff. And it's a group process, so it's being part of, and that's very helpful for me. In addition to that, I do play games online, so I play Scrabble all day. Any break I get, I'm a Scrabble person, so I play Scrabble online and stuff like that.
Get away from it all.
Yes.
Awesome.
So, Dr. Browne, tell us how we can someone wants to find you here in Florida, how to get to you?
Well, the easiest way is through my website. It's LetitiaBrowne-James.com. So LetitiaBrowne James.com. And my business is called Victorious Living Counseling and Consulting. So you can Google it, or I have a Facebook page for my business as well as an Instagram page. But my website can kind of take you to all of those places. My email is drlbj@LetitiaBrowne-James.com.
Awesome. So tell us a little scoop now, because we always have to go back to the food thing. Tell us a little scoop for your favorite VI dish.
Favorite
Oh.
VI dish.
My favorite VI dish. I have so many, but I would probably have to say chicken and rice.
Chicken and rice.
VI style chicken and rice. Yes. Because we all have
break it down, because we all have chicken and rice. What do you put in that chicken and rice?
Well, the way my mom did it, she did a seasoned rice with, the onions and bell peppers and so forth, and then add the chicken. So it's done different ways. It doesn't typically come with beans like in some of the other Caribbean islands, but that's my favorite, as well as our take on curry chicken and a host of others.
Yes, I think I can't remember what other country also does it, where the chicken and rice is cooked together. I'm not sure if it was Haiti, but I lived in, so I left Jamaica when I was 5 and lived in the VI. I lived in Tortola in the British, and I would be in St. Thomas on the weekends. And so, yeah, I got to get all that good stuff, and the fish and fungi and the
yes, ma'am.
fried fish and all that stuff. We were actually just in St. Thomas in January. So at Margaritaville, all of the good food and fried fish and so it's just amazing. So it's so good that you are here. You ladies are both here in the United States, giving back the knowledge, your time, your love, and also connecting back home. That's a beautiful thing. Do you any last words just to tell somebody if they are going through anything right now, just a little recommendation what they can do to maybe calm the mind a little bit? We'll start with you, Marcia, first.
Ease out the pressure.
Yes. So if you're going through a really tough time, I really, really suggest that you reach out to any close family members or friends that you can trust. Go online. If you go on psychologytoday.com, psychologists and counselors will pop right up. And on Psychology Today, it specifies what their specializations are. So if you have a depression problem, there are counselors who will do specializations on treating depression, so on and so forth. And just kind of reach out to your pastor, reach out to your church brothers, let someone know what's going on, because keeping it to yourself will only get worse and will end up with just what we don't want to see. So reach out, tell someone.
Thank you.
Yes, and reaching out, not a sign of weakness. We all may need help from someone, and definitely, like Marcia said, reaching out to your family, to your religious community if you're a part of a religious community, but also understanding that there's a difference between spiritual and or religious counseling and mental health counseling. So unless let's say it's a pastor, let's say that they have training in mental health, then okay, then they can do both. But understanding that sometimes you may need something else in addition to that, from someone that has special training in areas of mental health.
Awesome.
That's good to know, because folks like to stop at the church, and yes, it's good to know that there's different things that that experience that you need to you're not disrespecting the pastor by reaching out. You're saying, yes, pastor, and I need to contact a professional in this area. Okay.
And I'm hoping to, Donna, that the pastors themselves will be of help in referring persons to professionals. professionals for treatment. So I'm hoping that the pastors are educating, know their limits in treating such disorders, and reach out to professionals for help as they would if someone has cancer or diabetes or any other medical issue.
Exactly. Yes. And you can do both. You can still speak to your pastor or your religious leader to address the spiritual aspect while still seeing a counselor if needed. But leave it up to the professionals to tell you what to do, what to do. Because you can just call a counselor for a consultation. You may not necessarily need services, but if you don't know, you don't have to figure it out. That's what we're here for, to kind of help guide you in the right direction.
Is there any special programs out there available that you guys know of that for someone who don't have the money to reach out, because everything costs money to do something, to talk to you guys as professional? Any programs out there that you can recommend that someone can call and there's a program that can assist them in getting to someone like you, or to pay their way through getting some services, some mental health services?
So
Yeah, go ahead.
You want to go ahead, Dr. Brown?
Okay. I was going to say, yeah, there are several, but of course it depends on where you are. If you have insurance, of course, go through your insurance, because sometimes the insurance has special programs where you may get a certain amount of sessions for free, right? But I would also do a quick Google search for free counseling in your area, or and even at my practice, we have what we call pro bono slots, where we'll see people for free that cannot afford it. Or we'll do a sliding scale, and there are grants out there. It's really location specific too. So I would just do a search based on what your needs are to see what's available in your area.
Right. And even like for Catholic charities, they have a lot of communities, and for like migrant services. So I know a lot of people who are here illegally might be afraid they will not qualify for insurance coverage, but they have migrant services that caters to that. They have special projects, like they have AIDS project, LGBT projects that will cater to that population in need, and these are all free services.
Right. Yeah. Free or reduced. Like I know Open Path is another one that can link people to services at a low rate. So it really just depends on where you are. And another thing that COVID has done for us is opened up telehealth. So you can see a counselor virtually and not have to physically go there, as long as you, access to a smartphone or a computer and internet access, you should be able to find someone that can assist you.
And there are other groups such as Alcoholics Anonymous, AA. There is Narcotics Anonymous, Overeaters, Gamblers. There are specific groups such as depression, Alzheimer's, anxiety, divorced wives. They have so many different support groups. So if you just go online and you type in support groups, a lot of it will pop up. If you are not into AA or NA, there's Smart Recovery and some newer ones that are now surfacing. So you can actually do those also on Zoom. So you don't have to leave your homes to be able to participate. They have meetings online where they do it by phone number. You can conference in and be participating in these meetings from the comfort of your home. So these are very available services out there.
Awesome. Well, thank you. We've got so much information today, guys, right? From our two awesome, fabulous women in mental health. What a double dose we're giving you this month. Mental health awareness and Women's History Month. Can't get any better than that. So, Lois, I think that is a wrap for this week. Do you have any last words, Lois?
No, just want to thank both ladies for such information, great knowledge of what's going on, and we wish you guys all the best. The lady from Maria from St. Anne's, big you up. You have
Marcia.
From St. Anne's, Bob Marley come from the town. You have Marcus Garvey, you have Burning Spear, you have Camilla Harris, all of those.
Bunny Whaler that just passed.
Bunny Whaler, that's correct. So big up to you. And my VI massive, big up to you always for VI.
Yeah, man.
Thank you for
You know the
Yes.
BI Massive, when they come out, Lord,
Yes,
Yes,
trouble. It's trouble when we come out.
they do not sleep, Louis. Them don't sleep. They're non-stop.
play.
Those,
Yeah.
yeah,
Where
man.
want to get the energy from, people?
Yep. All right,
That's
ladies. So we're gonna wrap it up this week. We thank everyone for watching us on Caribbean Diaspora Vibes. We look forward to seeing you again next week. And just take care of yourself. Find some time for peace, for love. Reach out to somebody. You know when you're off. You know when you're feeling a little off and something is not right, or if you're a child or a spouse, reach out, get help, right? And we're all in this together. So peace and love, blessings, and until next time, everyone. Have a good night.
Thank you all. Thank you all. You're in tune to Caribbean Rhythms Radio Network live right here on Caribbean Rhythms Radio Network. Keep it locked right here. More music for the rest of the night. Tune in at crrfm.com.